Hi, so in this video I'll be showing you how to retouch images on the iPad Pro with an Apple Pencil. I pretty much edit all of my stuff on the iPad now. I initially was on a MacBook, but I made the transition onto the iPad and I haven't gone back. And honestly, I don't plan on going back either. So pretty much the biggest thing I try to focus on is to not just jump directly into retouching, especially when I'm editing objects out of the environment. I want it to look as seamless as possible. And I've watched a ton of tutorials and whatnot, and one of the biggest techniques that I've picked up is to use cloning. And when you're cloning, you want to be very particular about the type of shapes you're using. My go-to are typically triangles and rectangles, and it's because they kind of work like puzzle pieces. When I have a really complicated shape that I'm trying to edit out and I don't really know which way to approach it, I'll just start breaking it up into certain shapes, certain smaller shapes, and then gradually chip away at it. I've noticed that when I do that, it looks very natural. I'm very big on triangles. If it's not like an absurdly complicated shape, then I'm not too particular about what type of overlay I use. Like I will use a blob, but yeah, for the most part I use rectangles, squares, and triangles. Yeah, so one of the biggest things I learned is to always create gradients and to be consistent. Like if you're removing certain aspects of the image, you want to clone within the perimeter of what you're trying to remove. So if you are getting rid of this grate, you want to focus on keeping the bricks on this side. The model here is Eliani. You can follow her at It's Eliani on IG. But yeah, the model here, like, I stayed on the left side when I'm editing the bricks because I want the shadows and the lighting to be very consistent. I definitely avoid using the bricks on the right side because, like I said, the lighting will be very inconsistent. And you might not even have the way that bricks and lines are set up. Like, the further something is away, the smaller it looks. So if it's closer, you're gonna have bigger bricks, and it's not gonna really work if you're trying to fit in large bricks with smaller ones. So yeah, with this grate, I was not trying to be too quick with it. I was really taking my time and being meticulous because I really wanted it to look like that grate did not exist, because I was actually pretty fucking upset that it was there in the first place. But yeah, so I literally just gradually chipped away at it into tiny little pieces, and I kind of work in fidelity. And what I mean by that is, in the beginning, I won't be as perfectionistic as I can be. I kind of just do like a sloppy, not entirely sloppy because I don't want to leave too much work for myself later on. My technique is more rough, pretty much, like in the very beginning, because I know that I'm going to go in at the very end and fine tune everything. What you see now, like if you see any parts that aren't perfectly, like resolved, there's a very good chance that after the fact I went in and got rid of like the smaller imperfections. But yeah, when I'm first removing the objects, I definitely focus on just getting the main shapes out of it, and then from there I try to be more meticulous about the environment that it was covering. So pretty much it's something I've picked up over time. I'm definitely going to be one of those people and say that practice makes perfect, because I was not the best at it at first. But I will say that having an Apple Pencil makes your life very easy. Having a stylus, like before I had an iPad, I used a Wacom, and when I wasn't using my Wacom, I was using a touchpad on my Mac, and I can just reassure you that that doesn't always work best. You're definitely making your life a lot harder when you do that. But when you use a stylus, you can be very more precise. Like throughout the video, you can see that I'm using my fingers and the stylus, and that's kind of why I like using the iPad, because being hands-on just makes it a lot more engaging for me. It's a different experience. being able to manipulate the images with your finger definitely adds a fine touch onto the process of the workflow. It makes the workflow a lot more personable, and like you directly impacted it, even though you were doing that regardless. I personally think it's a lot quicker. I've never used anyway, I'm sorry. I was gonna say I never used a mouse, but definitely about to get sidetracked, and let's stay on. So yeah, I stay in one area for a while just to make sure that it's pretty precise, pretty clean. I don't like when I notice problems later on, like after I posted it already. That really bothers me, because I've noticed that I miss certain details when I edit. I've made it a point to be a lot more meticulous about editing things, because I don't really like when there are distractions from the main focus. And the main focus here is the architecture and the subject, Eliani. Anything that is going to take away from those focuses are anomalies that have to be resolved, neutralized, the whole nine. But yeah, I start in one side of the picture, and then I gradually make my way to the other side. And then there are certain things that I could leave out, but I think, I started anyway, so I may as well just do the most, because I've already been doing the most. So like, I definitely edited the gray out. The face, I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do with that poster, because I didn't know if it added character to the image. But one thing I do know is that when you have multiple faces in an image, the viewer can kind of find it difficult to focus. My main goal was pretty much to just take out any distraction, I would say. Definitely pay attention to details. Make sure that all your lines are lining up. If you're taking one part, like for example, the stairs, I make sure that the lines are lining up, because it's very obvious when they're not. It might not be important to you, but there are very observant people out there, and they will notice. Of course you don't have to care, but I care, because I would notice. So yeah, I do all this before I start color grading and colorizing, because that's my favorite part, and I try to just leave the best for last. Get rid of all the grunt work beforehand, so that when the colorizing comes, it's just a breeze. It doesn't feel like work. This part definitely does feel like work. It's not too bad, because I've been doing it for a while, but it takes concentrated effort and persistence. It took me a span of like 25 minutes to do this, even though I sped this video up. But yeah, one thing I can tell you though is, overall, just make sure that you're not doing everything all at once, because it's not going to be very manageable. Oh, and one thing you do want to do is, like, you definitely want to make sure that compare your after with the before, so you see the difference that it's making. And you can see that if things don't look necessarily as they should. I would say the biggest takeaway from this is to make sure that you're working in phases. You don't want to be a perfectionist right off the gate. Personally, I don't. I don't know if that works for you, but I would not recommend that for somebody that's just trying to learn this. I would say to give yourself leeway to be a little sloppy when you're getting rid of the objects at first, because some shapes are very complex and they're complicated, and you just want to focus on breaking them down and removing them from the image. And then after that, you can clean up and be very meticulous about what it looks like, what the environment looks like with that missing object. You want to make sure that that missing object seemed like it was never there. Definitely utilize your feather, utilize your opacity, do everything in your ability to make your image as least distracting as it can be. And if you're wondering why photography and retouching costs so much, it's because this is not an easy effort. I would definitely love to challenge someone to do this and compete with me and see who is better, because I spent a lot of time to be able to do this. And, I notice a lot of people don't see the value in what photographers and retouchers do. So, I challenge you to compete. Let's see what you can do. Okay, bye.